Good morning and welcome to the Morristown UU Fellowship. Welcome to the wonderful skeleton crew that we have here in the sanctuary. And welcome to all of you who are joining us online on our website, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Let me be sure to introduce you to the folks here in the room. We have a guest pianist with us this morning. We have Brent Geyer, who will be sharing music with us this morning. We have Marjorie Wormser, our Sunday associate. I'm Allison Miller, the minister here at the Morristown UU Fellowship. We have our AV folks. We have Paul Snellgrove, Alex West, and Laurent Comez, and my pod is here with me, David and Asher will be sharing the time for all ages. Let us open by affirming. I invite you to say along with me the following words that we so often share. It's an affirmation. It is good to be. It is good to be here. It is so good to be here and there together. And if you're curious to follow along our order of service this morning, you can look in the email I sent out. There's a link to it online, or you can go to muuf.org/Sunday services, and you'll find a link to the order of service there. Welcome, one and all, and I'll turn it over to Marjorie.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually alive, justice-centered, and inclusive community. We're so glad you're here with us virtually today via our website or Facebook or YouTube. And today, as Reverend Allison said, we have a small crew here broadcasting from our sanctuary for the third Sunday in a row. And this is to help prevent spreading the coronavirus. We will continue to share our plans for the following Sunday online and in the Wednesday email blast. So my name is Marjorie Wormser. I am your Sunday associate. I have a few announcements to share with you, especially about today's schedule, which is a little different. We are broadcasting this service now at 9:30, and it will still be available for viewing at the regular 11:15 a.m. second service time, as well as afterwards. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Our children and youth religious education programming will happen today at 10:30 via Zoom. There will be a children's chapel, a junior high neighboring faiths class, and a youth group parents. Check Friday's religious education email and the links. An important announcement, please take time to watch the strategic plan presentation today, perhaps following this very service. You can go to www.muuf.org/SPTF, Strategic Planning Task Force, -2022 for details. There will be a question and answer on the Zoom at 1 p.m. today and again at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Please try to attend if you haven't done so already. There are 3 additional activities on Zoom this afternoon, and you can find the links in Reverend Allison's pastoral update or on our website. There is a weekly online coffee hour on Zoom at 12:30 p.m., a new meditation group with Reverend Alan Wells and Bob Calafiore, which launches at 12:45 p.m., and Reverend Allison Miller and 2 colleagues, the Reverends Marty Keller and Jay Wolin, will launch a Musar Jewish Values Study Group at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Finally, our offering will be split 50-50 between the work of this fellowship and the UU Ministry for Earth, you can donate by going online to our website at www.muuf.org or text to give. I believe the numbers are 73256.
Yes,
3256. Keyword MUF, M-U-U-F, and then your dollar amount, or by mailing in a check. Thank you for your generosity. Welcome, one and all. Let us begin our worship by lighting the flaming chalice, the symbol of our faith, with the words of James Villa Blake. Okay. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now we have a responsive reading, number 544 in the Gray Songbook. Allison, will you be joining me?
Yes, I will.
Oh, okay. And will you read the italics and I'll read the Roman?
Perfect.
Okay. 544. This is entitled New Year's Day. The 1st of January is another day dawning, the sun rising as the sun always rises, the earth moving in its rhythms.
With or without our calendars, to name a certain day as the day of new beginning, separating the old from the new.
So it is. Everything is the same, bound into its history as we ourselves are bound.
Yet also we stand at a threshold. The new year, something truly new, still unformed, leaving a stunning power in our hands.
What shall we do with this great gift of time this year?
Let us begin by remembering that whatever justice, whatever peace and wholeness might bloom in our world this year,
we are the hearts and minds, the hands and feet, the embodiment of all the best visions of our people.
The new year can be new ground for the seeds of our dreams.
Let us take the step forward together onto new ground,
planting our dreams well, faithfully, and in joy.
And now our opening song, Shall We Gather at the River? And thank you, Brent.
Shall we gather at the river where bright angels' feet have trod, with His crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up its silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden day. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, only ever burdened down, grace our spirits will deliver and provide a robe and a crown. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the thrones of God.
And now I would love to invite Asher to come join me. We're keeping it small, so my pod is here. And Asher, would you help share our story for all ages? It has a New Year's feel. It's called I Wish You More by Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld. And I'll hold this up for you, Asher. And we'll wait for the screen to come down so that you at home can see the pictures. Oh,
It's all digital, they see it.
oh, they see it digitally. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Oh, and then
Yes, even though the screen's not down, they see it online perfectly.
I wish you more ups than downs. I wish you more give than take. I wish you more tippy toes than deep. I wish you more we than me. I wish you more hugs than Uggs. I wish you more woohoo than whoa. I wish you more will than hill. I wish you more can than not. I wish you more snowflakes than tongue. I wish you more pause than fast forward. I wish you more umbrella than rain. I wish you more bubbles than bath. I wish you more treasures than pockets. I wish you more stories than stars. I wish all of this for you because you are everything I could wish for and more.
Thank you, Asher. I invite those of you who are at home to share your wishes for one another and our community in the chat. And if you're new, I also invite you to just say hello and let us know that you're there so someone can greet you. I wish all the newcomers have a welcoming experience this morning, and I can't wait to meet you either in person or on Zoom one of these days. Welcome, one and all, to the beginning of a new year. And just a reminder that this is the time in our service when the morning's offering is given and received. And today we are sharing 50% of our offering with the UU Ministry for Earth. Thank you for your generosity. It makes a difference. It is the time in our service where we honor the milestones and passages that have happened in the lives of our fellow congregants since we last met. Today we have a significant milestone to share. Sarah Murray Dundas, a beloved member of our fellowship, passed away this week. We hold her husband, Michael, who may be with us. Michael, we are holding you in our prayers and our hearts. And for folks that may not have seen it yet, there is a letter that went out, a Wheel of Life, with a way to contact Michael. And I also want to lift up her son, Matthew, and his wife, Mary, her son, Brendan, and his wife, Katie, and her grandsons, Ben and Tom. We're about to light a candle in Sarah's honor, and as we do that, let me lift up these truths about her. Sarah was a woman who sought to make a difference in the world, and oh, she succeeded. She was a teacher as her profession and cared deeply about leaving this world a better place for the future. She drew inspiration from nature and from hiking and felt connected to walking lightly on this earth. She cared for friends and family and strangers alike, and Sarah was very involved in not only ministries in this congregation, but in advocacy as a local politician for the fair and just treatment of immigrants in our community. And Sarah loved this fellowship and the people in it, and she will be sorely missed. We will hold a memorial service for Sarah in this room later on when it is safer to gather. But for now, let us light a candle for Sarah, the light of her life, the lessons of her days, and the legacy of her love of you, Michael, a marriage of 53 years, and her love for all of us and so many lives on in our hearts. Will you join me in a spirit of reflective prayer and meditation? Spirit of life, Spirit of an abundant love, move in us and through us and among us, and ripple out from every room in which we find ourselves. Help us to be the hands and feet, the minds and hearts, bringing into the world actions of justice, of wholeness, of healing. At the dawn of a new year, help us to see the possibilities that lie before us, to deepen in spirit, to grow in compassion, to enact right relations, and to heal personally and communally. We hold in our hearts and in this prayer those who are suffering at this moment, whether from a loss or a disappointment, or whether from an injustice. We hold all those who are sick in our community from the coronavirus. May they receive kindness through caring hands and through medications that make a difference. And finally, we hold in our hearts the image of beauty just outside our door, of one of the first snowfalls of the winter and the first snowfall of this season. And I invoke the spirit of the children who whizzed right here behind this wall down the hill, laughing with glee. May this year bring simple and profound joys. All these things and so many others are our prayers, our yearnings, and our meditations. Amen, and blessed be one and all.
This morning's reading is a poem by Mary Oliver entitled "The Journey." One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. Though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with his stiff fingers at the very foundations. Though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own. It kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do only the thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. And now, our congregational song, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle.
We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. Siblings, family, all. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Siblings, family, all. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. We will circles moving on and on, the circles moving, siblings, family on.
It is the dawn of a new year. We are just a little over 1 week into 2022 with almost 51 weeks to go. 98% of the year is unwritten. Hope and anticipation are often our companions at this time of year. We are also 22 months into a time of collective adversity and challenge. Just when we get used to things feeling a little more normal for a time, the Delta and then Omicron variant came roaring into our lives, and it may feel like it's 2020 all over again. It can feel like nothing has changed or like things constantly change. Instead of feeling a surge of energy at the arrival of that annual blank canvas, the chance to start over, to begin anew towards personal goals and desired change, some of you may be feeling thwarted before you've even begun. I've been going to the gym at least twice a week since the beginning of October. And now that my aim is to keep it up through 2022, I'm afraid to be around other people inhaling and exhaling as we exercise. I know I can exercise at home, but I find it helpful to participate in classes to help me with accountability. Our spiritual theme of this year is keep on moving forward. What does that mean in a time that we might describe as pivot, pivot, pivot? We seemingly have to constantly change plans and accept that what we originally planned to do might not work out. And if you see the image on our order of service connected to our theme of the year, you'll notice that what we have is a direction forward and upwards, but there are at least 3 hills or mountains, and you can't quite see what's on the other side. Instead of a series of resolutions this year, maybe we would be well served by aiming for growth in the face of change and further developing the psychological and spiritual tools to be able to adapt with creativity, with courage, and with compassion. That is most certainly a direction, even as the specific destination is hard to make out. Let me share 2 versions of a story about a couple of frogs who face the curveballs of life in very different ways. The first version is the one I'm most familiar with. Once upon a time, there were 2 frogs who were having a very bad day. They fell into a 10-gallon milk bucket, and one frog said, "What's the use?" and gave up and drowned. And the other frog said, "I can't afford to give up." So that frog kicked, and suddenly the cream turned into butter, and he was able to jump out of the bucket. Now, if the 2 frogs had kicked together, maybe the cream would have become butter faster. And here's the second version. Once upon a time, there was a whole group of frogs who were traveling through the woods. All of a sudden, 2 of the frogs fell into a deep pit. All the other frogs gathered round that pit, And when they saw just how deep it was, they told those unfortunate frogs, "You will never get out." The two frogs ignored the comments, and they tried to jump out of the pit. But the other frogs all around them continued to tell them to stop, that it wasn't worth it, and that they were already as good as dead. Finally, one of the two frogs started to pay attention to everything that was being said around him. And finally, he gave up, and he did not make it. The other frog, though, continued to jump as hard as he could. Once again, those frogs were yelling at him, "Just stop. It's not worth the pain and suffering. Just be at peace with this end." And he kept jumping harder, and finally, he made it out of that deep pit. When the other frogs surrounded him afterwards, they asked him, "Why did you continue to jump? Didn't you hear us?" The frog explained to him that he was deaf, and actually he couldn't hear them, but he assumed from their motions that they were cheering him on the entire time. Each of these frogs carried a story within that made a difference. Of course, it is possible that no matter what, one of the two frogs might not have made it. However, it is certain that that would happen if the frog didn't even try. In the milk bucket, the frog who survives carries the story that life, and maybe his life, is worth going for it. I can't afford to give up. And in the deep pit, the frog who survives carries the story that with greater effort, he just might make it out of there. And maybe more importantly, he carries a story of fellow frogs surrounding him who cheer him on, even if he isn't hearing that at that moment. He carries that story with him that he is not alone. Let me shift towards human beings. It turns out that one of the single most important psychological and spiritual tools that we have is the narrative that we hold within when we are facing adversity and change. That narrative might spring from our family of origin, it often does, or a family that we create, our chosen family, or a family like this one, the extended family and community of our fellowship. Marshall Duke, a psychologist at Emory University, studied this particular phenomenon. It turned out that his wife, Sarah, was a psychologist who worked with children who had learning disabilities, and she noticed something, that the students who knew a lot about their families and their family stories tended to do better when they were faced with challenges at school. And I know as a parent, so many of our children have been faced with challenges in these last couple of years. Her husband was fascinated, and along with a colleague, Robin Fivush, set out to test her hypothesis. They developed a measure called the Do You Know scale, and they asked children to answer 20 questions. Do you know where your grandparents grew up? Do you know where your parents met? Do you know about an illness or something really terrible that happened to someone in your family? And many other questions. They also taped the dinner table conversations of these families, and then they compared the children's results to a number of psychological tests. It turned out that the more the children knew about their family history, the stronger a sense of possibility they had around their lives, the higher their self-esteem, and the more successfully they believed that they and their families functioned. The Do You Know scale turned out to be a big predictor of emotional health and resilience. And it had everything to do with that child feeling connected to something, a community larger than themselves. They had an intergenerational sense of self. And I want to recall us to the moment that we're living through. So many of us have drawn inspiration by going back over 100 years to the pandemic of 1918, because none of us in our lifetime has experience of a pandemic. Even those that are still alive, who were also alive back then, may not remember it well. So the stories are coming toward us from those who are deceased. But when we know them, it can make a difference, that intergenerational sense of self. Well, it turns out that families might share 3 kinds of narratives, and one is the most helpful. So I want to share that with you today. There are families that carry an ascending family narrative, and some of you might recognize this in your family. When we came to this country, we had nothing, but our family worked hard. We opened a store, and then your grandfather went to high school, and then your mother went to college, and now you, and so on. The story is one of progress, continual progress. And then there is the descending narrative. Some families might impart that. We used to have it all, but we lost everything. The stories are a repetitive version of having and then losing it all. The descending narrative. The third one, the oscillating family narrative, turns out to be the most powerful in terms of resilience. It goes something like this. We've had ups and downs in our family. We built a family business, but then it burned to the ground. Your grandfather was a pillar of the community, but then your uncle was arrested for such and such. Your father lost a job, but no matter what happened, we stuck together as a family and we made it through. The children and the adults who have the most self-confidence, who have the greatest resilience, have that sense of an intergenerational self. They know they belong to something bigger than their lives, and they know that their family and they can make it through ups and downs. It's a story, this oscillating narrative, that helps you make sense of good times and bad times. And when faced with a challenge, families who contain this kind of story will meet that challenge like those 2 frogs. They'll go for it with an imagination they could make it to the other side, even if everyone doesn't. They know their lives are worth it. So I invite you this year to think about, what are the stories that your families share? And that study actually came to me through one of the greatest storytellers in my family, who is now deceased. My Uncle Mark Kaplan at a Passover Seder. And the Passover Seder is really a story of one of those ups and downs, the story of survival and thriving through great challenges and over thousands of years of generations of Jewish people. He took the Passover Haggadah that year and put it to the side, shared about this research project of Dr. Duke that had so captivated his imagination, and then went on to share the stories of ups and downs of our family and how they had survived. And he was a prime example, and I carry his story with me. Uncle Mark was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, And he was told by many people that he would not have a successful career, that he would not get married, that he would not become a father, that he would not, and he could not. But he carried a story in his heart and within that his life was worth it, and that he could do a lot of things, and it was worth finding out. And so indeed, he wound up achieving a career and got married and had a daughter. And of course, he faced huge challenges. And in fact, when he could no longer travel by himself for his profession, his wife would travel with him, making it possible for him to do that. And he was, in many ways, the spiritual leader of our family. And so we carry the stories he shared with us of the Haggadah and of that year, about our family surviving pogroms, and of our family experiencing success, and of his own life story with us, so that when we're in a pit or during a time of challenge, we might draw on that and hear him cheering us on, even now that he's no longer with us. So again, to return to this time of the new year, what is a story, a narrative, a direction, a moving forward, if you will, that just might hold you in this time of adversity, and would be a story and a narrative that might inspire you in a time of great possibility and joy? And because we're talking about our strategic plan in this extended family of ours, I'm going to point back to our last strategic plan and one of the visions that was part of that plan, and also talk about one of the visions that's part of the plan we'll be voting on next month. So with our last strategic plan, we had a direction and a vision of growing and deepening in spirit. And for us, that meant so many things, but I can tell you the difference it made in our lives. Yes, there were particulars on the plan that we fulfilled, but we had a vision of really living deeply into being a religiously plural community, a place where people who believed in God and those who identified as humanist or atheist could have their souls and minds fed. A place where people who come from different religious backgrounds could feel a resonance with what we lifted up. And I'll just share 2 examples of how we've transformed and how that was possible, no matter if it was a season of ups and downs. One is right here, this rug. This rug comes from one of our members, Iraj Mohabalian, who comes from a Muslim background, who said, "How do we know in this room that all are welcome?" Iraj said, I, as someone who comes from Iran and out of a Muslim background, don't see a symbol that is a symbol of a transcendent and also homecoming space, a beautiful woven rug. And so we had deliberate conversations about who we were, and now this symbol is right here for everyone who walks in. And when I first arrived here, that 3-letter G-O-D was off limits. And now we welcome exploring many ideas about the divine at lay services and minister-led services alike. And we are nourishing the lives of a broader part of Morris County and beyond. This time, one of the visions coming up when you listen to that really inspiring presentation is one of greater hospitality and not being a remote congregation on a hill removed from the center of action. and a clear vision of reaching out as we've begun through being online, through campaigns where we actually publicize, at least if not proselytize, who we are, because so many of our members testify to the difference that Unitarian Universalism has made in their lives. This healing, powerful, creative community. And so we will be living into that vision of hospitality, whether or not we're able to be together every Sunday. We can grow and deepen in a sense of radical hospitality, no matter what adversities we face. And we're also looking more deeply into the 8th principle and what it means to hold a wide welcome and to become an even more multiracial, multicultural congregation. Again, individually and collectively, we can live into narratives and stories and personal or communal mission statements that hold us. And maybe, and according to Dr. Duke, that's the best thing we could do at the beginning of the year. So here's one I lift up as a possibility, and I hope you'll come up with one of your own. This is a possibility of a resolution living into this vision for me and maybe for us. And I hope it'll join with your vision as well. We are a creative, courageous, and compassionate community in the face of challenges, both positive and negative. We were creative, courageous, and compassionate when we had to deal with a lawsuit with our neighbors, and we overcame. And we are so creative, compassionate, and courageous in our vision for creating a community center for us and all of Morris County. Both of these things, the ups and downs, can hang on that collective vision. So at coffee hour today, I can't wait to hear what you're inspired to move towards in 2022. May it be a vision of wholeness, of healing, and a vision that is worthy of your life. Amen, and blessed be, and may it be so. And now for our closing song, When the Spirit Says Do.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
And now in our going, may the light of love bless us and keep us. May it radiate down upon us. May it radiate out from within us. May it bless us and make of all of us peace builders, justice builders, people who create glimpses of love and plant the seeds of justice. For this is the day that you and I are given. So let us sow seeds of gladness and joy and healing in it. Blessed be, go forth, and may you enjoy this gorgeous, community-filled day.